Here's everything toxic Zuckerberg's grown-up hot or not clone did in 2022. In January, Meta experienced their biggest stock market loss ever. Call me optimistic, but I like to view it as their biggest stock loss so far. Meta were then sued for £2.3 billion over a claim that Facebook users in the UK were exploited. So much for changing their name to avoid legal issues. 44 million UK users got a share of that money, totaling £52 per person, assuming lawyers don't take any money and they make it easy for us to apply for. In about goddamn time news, February was the first month Facebook lost daily users. Nature is healing. Meta then threatened to pull Facebook and Instagram from the European market. Is it a threat? Or is it a promise? Don't threaten me with a good time here, Zuck. Let me be the first to congratulate Europeans on their newfound mental health. And I'm not alone in thinking that. European leaders said life would be better without Facebook. That's like Zuckerberg saying, I'm going to jump off the building. And the EU responding, don't forget to do a backflip. In an update to the Zuckerning, we learned that Mark has burned through $500 billion rebranding his hot or not clone, the Metaverse, in an attempt to create his own real-life Ready Player One. But the company burning to the ground, to me, is all for the greater good. In trying to control the population news, the UK government threatened to make adults give their credit card details to access Facebook or TikTok. This was the 12th time in a decade the Tory party has attempted an internet ID system. But this has never worked, because people just use VPNs to avoid giving away more data than they want to. This story is actually sponsored by NordVPN. If you use the link in my description and the code FUCKBORIS, you'll get 10% off a 5-year plan. In Crimea River news, Facebook blamed Apple for their historically bad quarter, saying that iPhone privacy changes will cost them $10 billion. This is the best advert for Apple since those Mitchell and Webb sketches back in the noughties. In March, we discovered that Facebook's algorithm was mistakenly elevating harmful content and has been for the last 6 months. I can only assume they've been doing it on purpose for the other 10 years. Oh, and by mistakenly, do you mean that you got caught? I've done a full video on algorithmic cruelty and how it occurs in things like Facebook's year in review, linked below. In unrelated news, Facebook drives skeptics towards climate denial content, failed to label 80% of posts promoting bioweapon conspiracy theories, and paid a PR firm to elevate anti-TikTok ads. No, seriously, Facebook paid political consultants to smear TikTok. Clearly the only thing they learned from Cambridge Analytica is, it works. It's weird reading stuff like this because I was always taught there are 2 ways to build the biggest tower. 1, you can build the biggest tower. Or secondly, you can knock down everyone else's tower until yours is the biggest by default. I always naively hoped that everyone went for the former. Anyway, Apple and Facebook reportedly provided personal user data to hackers posing as law enforcement. I'm guessing it was 2 Russian teenagers in a trench coat. I look forward to my $1.86 compensation from the inevitable class action lawsuit. In No Shit Sherlock news, Facebook has a child predatory problem. No, society has a Facebook problem, and they wonder why Gen Z doesn't want to join their hive of Karens. At this point, I'm surprised they haven't doubled down and purchased Snapchat. Russia then banned Instagram, designating Meta an extremist organisation. I guess a broken clock is right twice a day. How bad do you have to be for Russia to label you an extremist organisation? This really is the worst timeline. And finally, Ireland fined Meta for bad record keeping. It's like taking Al Capone to court for tax evasion, or getting mad at a nuclear bomb for the paint job. Sure, it's not ideal, but it's definitely not the dangerous part. In April, former and current Facebook employees claimed that the metaverse is all Zuckerberg wants to talk about. I guess when your business model is monetizing every aspect of human life, it will be a hot topic for the billionaire who owns the company. Fetch isn't going to happen, Mark, so now even his employees are telling him he's annoying. We all knew that he was aware that everyone outside the company doesn't like him, or he wouldn't have spent a record-breaking $27 million on security last year. Look, haters are gonna hate, but if you have to spend $27 million on security, maybe you should reconsider some of your business and life choices. It would be easier at this point for him to move into the metaverse and perhaps enjoy a tax-free status. Stop giving them ideas! Zuck then claimed that his employees love calling him the Eye of Sauron. He's gone full David Brent. They're the only 2 bosses I could imagine giving themselves a nickname and then saying their staff love it. Based on that, you might think that Zuck hasn't read Lord of the Rings. He has. He just thinks the good guy lost. If you don't like Zuckerberg's nickname, you can always quit. And he'll claim that you leaving is good for the company, / his ego. Speaking of badly named things, Mark floated the idea of having Zuckbucks in the metaverse. What's next? Bezos pesos? Bills bills? Elon coin? Actually, that cryptocurrency would probably sell. It's fun to watch a company in decline in real time and watch the founder try and grab a legacy before it's not too late. It's not tragic at all. Meta then announced their first physical store to allow people to try the metaverse before spunking $400 on their headsets. Great, now Americans can be even more detached from reality. Oh, and Instagram came under fire for overtly sexualized images of kids. Apparently they weren't enough for Prince Andrew. To cap off the month, WhatsApp was given an update to make the app more like Facebook, because Facebook's stock price was doing so well. I've done a full video on why you should delete WhatsApp and avoid giving Zuckerberg access to your private conversations, which you can watch here. In May, Facebook secretly planted op-ed articles to lobby against tech reform. Well, slap my ass and call me Susie. I did not see that coming. It clearly didn't do much as senators pushed back and put forward a new bill to break up the advertising side of both Google and Facebook. Then a judge in Florida took 5 minutes away from deciding if people could marry crocodiles and decided to block a law which allowed Facebook and Twitter to ban politicians because, and I'm paraphrasing here, the right to free speech does not mean that anyone else has to provide a soapbox for you to stand on. Ugh, I can feel the Elon fan trolls in my comments now. Then Zuckerberg was sued by Washington, D.C. Yeah, the state sued him for his and Facebook's role in Cambridge Analytica. You know, that thing that happened back in 2013. And I'll only agree with people who say, better late than never, if the result isn't a fine and a slap on his wrist while we call him Susie. Meta then told employees to stop discussing abortion at work. Oh, come on, Zuck. You don't pay people enough to dictate what they can and can't discuss, especially in such a hot-button debate. And haven't you heard of the Streisand effect? And finally, police put out a Facebook post urging people to come forward and give any information they might have to help catch a man on the run for aggravated burglary. In the comments to that post, the burglar wrote, "Catch me if you can." This led to a flood of leads from people who'd seen him around or knew where he was. As a result, the police arrested him. I guess, be careful what you wish for. At the start of June, we found out that yet again, Meta failed to protect child models on Instagram from paedophiles. Now, I'm not on Facebook's side here, but who puts photos of their kids on Instagram? Especially the good-looking ones. If your kid is too young to even join up to the app, why are you uploading photos of them to it? At this rate, Instagram is turning less into TikTok and more into Snapchat. Meta then banned the sale of guns in their marketplace. Sellers are given 10 strikes, but if you try and sell a gun on the 11th time, your account might get deleted. You're being a bit hard on them there, aren't you, Mark? I mean, to be fair, you do have to give people a chance. I mean, don't act like you've not accidentally sold a gun on Facebook Marketplace 4 or 5 times. We've all been there. Then the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, removing abortion rights for millions of American women. Facebook responded with their usual level of class by removing posts that mentioned abortions, as well as posts from women offering to send Americans Plan B pills. But don't worry, it was just a bug in the system, apparently. Zuckerberg then banned employees from discussing abortions at work. But don't worry, I'm sure it's just a bug in his system. In July, we got the good news that you'll no longer need a Facebook account to log into your Oculus headset, although you will need a Meta account, so swings and roundabouts. This has the added advantage that if Facebook suspends your profile for some fickle reason, you can still access your game's library. It also helps Zuckerberg get a massive hard-on because he can claim that the metaverse user base is increasing when it clearly isn't. Given Facebook's loss of users and drop in share price, Zuck decided he wanted more from his team and called on managers to fire anyone who wasn't working hard enough. Not improve the product or service or listen to your users, just fire anyone who isn't working hard enough. He's the living embodiment of a worker blaming their tools instead of the end product. But I'm sure this is the last we'll hear about this.
Simon didn't know, but he would hear about this again.
Kenya then threatened to ban Facebook if it didn't stop showing ads encouraging people to rape or behead Kenyan citizens along ethnic lines. We've come so far since the days of Cambridge Analytica. Kenya has given Facebook a week to remove these ads ahead of their election, or they'll block access to the site. This is the kind of cancel culture I can actually get behind. It only took Facebook a week to remove any ads talking about abortion last month, so let's see if they can do it again. Next, a fired Facebook employee claimed that Facebook created a secret tool to read users' deleted messages. It's not much of a secret now we all know about it. This, just like Zuckerberg, is just a tool. According to the lawsuit, Facebook could access data that users intended to be permanently destroyed, which included the entire history of what they thought were private and deleted messages. So kids, what did we learn from this? Oh, me. Nothing is truly deleted from Facebook, it's just hidden from us. Excellent, Kevin. Go to the top of the class. And finally, a new survey finds that Instagram and TikTok are wreaking havoc on our finances and happiness. What if I'm miserable and I don't use either of them? 64% of social media users who made an impulsive purchase from an advert regretted at least one purchase. It's almost like you can't buy happiness. The Washington Post, true to form, took a different angle on this story with the headline, "Ads make gullible people do gullible things. Start selling on Amazon today." California rejected a bill that would allow parents to sue social media sites for creating and targeting children with addictive tools and apps. For me, this is just another reason I'm glad I'm never having kids. This reminds me of the lawsuit against McDonald's using cartoon characters, play centers, and cheap food, and how it might be linked with kids becoming fatter. That lawsuit also failed, and at the time, I thought it was a bit of a waste of energy. Even if they don't admit their algorithms have an impact, the fact they're lobbying against the bill should tell us everything we need to know. I do feel like we're going to look back on this move and shudder. Netflix will probably do a documentary about it called Kill Bill 3. Facebook then decided to ban all political ads ahead of the US midterm elections, stating, "We found that a restriction period achieves the right balance of giving campaigns a voice while providing additional time for scrutiny of political ads in the ads library." They did a similar thing back in 2020, and frankly, I'm here for it. I just wish they'd do it in other countries, given Kenya has asked them to take down ads that ask people to do horrific things along ethnic lines. This shows that Meta is willing to admit that their platform does have a big impact, for better or worse, on people's opinions on important issues, something they've not always been so ready to admit. Personally, I think political ads should be banned all year round, but that's just me. September wasn't the best month for Facebook. It started with 95% of America appealing to reinstate the 2020 antitrust lawsuit against Meta. This lawsuit focused on the acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp, saying that it had a negative impact both on the US economy and the tech marketplace as a whole. Before you ask, the states sitting this one out are Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and South Dakota. No wonder their share price is falling faster than Hollywood's interest in any woman over the age of 30. Facebook then denied restricting access to WhatsApp and Instagram for Iranian users. Iranian activists were using these apps to organize protests, which the government weren't exactly a fan of. But it turns out they didn't need to restrict access to the apps, as the government were going over their heads and shutting down the internet. So I guess Meta are the good guys in this story? Then we got the Facebook Fine of the Month.
It's the Facebook Fine of the Month.
As Ireland fined Instagram a record-breaking $400 million over the mishandling of children's data. Zuckerberg responded, "That's fair, Judge. Do you have change for $1 billion?" Then we learned how conservative Facebook groups are changing what books children are allowed to read in schools. You know, in the same way BookTok on TikTok is causing crazy spikes in sales of all books except mine. These groups rate books from 1 to 5, allowing busy parents who want to know what objectionable material is found between a book's covers. 1 means it's suitable for everyone, and 5 means, and I swear I didn't make this up, you might get arrested for reading it at school board meetings. How am I supposed to write a joke about that? Let's move on. And finally, a story that was rated 6 by conservative Facebook groups. Instagram removed Pornhub's account. I didn't even know Pornhub had an account. I don't even know what Pornhub is. Oh, and they're also working on nudity protection technology for your DMs. So now we can no longer play Hot Dog or Wang. October was all about virtual reality, with Zuckerberg trying to convince us VR is a thing. VR is a thing. The metaverse, on the other hand, is not. Stop trying to make fetch happen, Zuck. Less than a month ago, a key member of staff for the metaverse quit. I assumed it was the one in charge of coding the legs. But Zuck ruined that conspiracy theory with this cringy video. Or did he? This is the shittest game since Guess My Age. Will my avatar in the metaverse have legs? Who gives a shit? Zuck then urged Meta staff to have virtual meetings even though many of them didn't have VR headsets. Now, call me crazy, but I would have assumed that Facebook would give all their staff headsets if they need them to do the job. We live in a world where adverts get in the way of everything good, and people are actively avoiding them in order to get to the news, videos, and podcasts that they love. And now Meta, an advertising company, has created a place full of adverts built from the ground up to help advertisers more than its users, and they're shocked people don't want to spunk $400 on their headsets. Their staff aren't even using their flagship app because it's too buggy. Well, I'm shocked. Henry Ford gave his workers a pay rise in 1914 so they could afford to buy his cars. I wonder if Zuckerberg could learn a lesson here. Look, I can't blame him. If I'd spunked $15 billion on a product, I'd want some sort of return on it as well. Has anyone seen my tiny violin? To solve the problem, Oculus released a $1,500 headset with a 2-hour battery life because the $400 ones were selling so well. And finally, Wall Street was hit with a $2 billion fine after a WhatsApp probing. The fuck does that mean? Well, me in a hat, let me break it down for you. Bankers text each other to cheat the market using WhatsApp. The authorities found out, and bankers have agreed to pay a fine rather than go to court. So wait, Facebook can just give up my conversations to the authorities without my consent or knowledge? Yes. What planet have you been living on? Everything. Everything? Even photos? Yes, even... Hang on, what did you send? Nothing. I'll be back in a minute. I've done a full video on why you should delete WhatsApp right now and use any other messaging app if you value your privacy higher than Zuckerberg does. If you want to watch it, it's on my YouTube channel and linked below. Oh, and in case you're still sitting on the fence, please be aware that Zuckerberg uses Signal and not WhatsApp. In November, Meta and TikTok were busted for actively pushing Stop the Steal 2.0 posts on the eve of the Brazilian presidential election. Meta claims to be for election integrity. They've got a whole landing page dedicated to it, and they don't just let anyone put a page of propaganda on the internet. So it must be true. The article says that the misinformation was pushed out by their disastrous recommendation systems. So the machine learning algorithm has learned that the most angry people engage more, especially when they're shown content that will make them the angriest. So it's pushing out content to them to get them angry. Who knew? I just feel like Zuckerberg needs to give up on this metaverse shit and get that sorted. Or find someone else to resolve it for him. I wonder if Elon Musk is free. You would think being caught destroying democracy would be enough for this company to be broken up by now. And yet, here we are. It's just a friendly reminder that this video is part of a series of videos that I've created for the end of the year, involving everything toxic Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and TikTok did. You can find them all linked below. Then we discovered Facebook probably has your phone number, even if you never shared it. They could have at least bought me a drink first. Facebook will often ask for access to your phone book, which you should never do. They say it's to help you find friends. And when I say it like that, isn't it the saddest thing you've ever heard? But in reality, they can get some of these details without you actively giving it to them. They rolled out a feature in May to let you see if they have your details, but they haven't exactly been shouting about it for obvious reasons. Because if they do have it, they'll give you the option to delete it forever. Here's the URL if you want to see what data they have on you. Well, I've never had a Facebook account, so they won't have any data on me. Well, that's where you're wrong, me in a hat. If your details are in a friend's phone, and that friend gives Facebook access to their phone, Facebook knows you exist, and they've created a shadow profile on you, and it's just waiting there for when you sign up. Full video on Facebook shadow profiles linked below. And finally, Meta's valuation plunged by $700 billion in what Wall Street called a train wreck. I have a feeling that once again, the only thing missing from this headline are the words "so far." This drop has meant that Meta is no longer in the top 20 most valuable companies in America. Think of this list as like Forbes' MySpace top 8. So the reason Meta's share price fell faster than the pound after Kwasi Kwarteng's budget is simple. The weird belief that Facebook could keep expanding and growing forever and ever Amen. This book goes into great detail as to why that's not possible for anything. Even though they knew they were hitting saturation point, so decided to start to break out into the world of VR, they took their eye off the ball, and now newer, more exciting apps are taking away our attention, which is our economic value in today's society, which is depressing, I know. Equally, what Facebook hasn't factored into any of its choices is that most people want to be part of a community, and they're craving authenticity, which isn't something you get on Instagram, and it certainly isn't something you get on Facebook. This means they can bolt on as many content formats as they like, but ultimately, most people don't want to reveal their kinks on the same app their parents are using. Is that everyone's For You page, or is it just mine? I feel like I've overshared. Zuckerberg has spunked 15 billion into the metaverse, and as a result, he had to fire around 11,000 people, saying, "I got things wrong," but has no plans to stop building his virtual hellscape. Talk about not learning from your mistakes. In December, we learned that fake Facebook and Instagram accounts that promoted US interests, could you be more vague, had ties to the US military. A government using a social network to push propaganda? Say it ain't so. Then Meta AI showcased a demonstration of their latest language learning model, designed to, quote, store, combine and reason about scientific knowledge, which then proceeded to write racist and inaccurate scientific literature. To be fair, it was trained on the post that got shared on Facebook, so what did they expect? Despite their best efforts back in June, gun ads flowed onto Meta's platforms, and if you use WhatsApp, your data could be up for sale. What's new? Facebook has always been selling my data. Well, me in a hat, this isn't Facebook this time. It's hackers who claim to have 500 million Facebook users' records up for sale. Once more for the people at the back. A quarter of WhatsApp's estimated 2 billion monthly users' data is for sale. And it isn't even that expensive. The US dataset of 32 million people will set you back about $7,000. And you can snap up the 11 million British numbers for a budget-friendly $2,500. That's pretty good in this economy. Why would they want all those phone numbers? Leaked phone numbers can be used for marketing and phishing purposes. What about photos? Now, your dick pics are safe. They only have your number and your contacts book. Whew! How many dick pics have you sent? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this video, please do share it with a friend, drop me a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff below. Also, all the other videos in this series are also linked in the description. Godspeed. I'll see you all next year.